Utilitarianism is a moral philosophy that originated in the 18th century with British philosopher Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. Jeremy Bentham is considered the founder of the modern utilitarianism. He argued that actions are right if they promote the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. John Stuart Mill expanded on Bentham's idea, emphasizing individual liberty and importance of intellectual and emotional pleasure.
Now let's talk about the greatest happiness principle. The idea says that an action is good if it makes the people happy, and it's bad if it causes pain. So happiness means feeling good and not hurting, and happiness means feeling pain and not enjoying anything. So basically, if what you do makes people feel better, it is the right thing. But if what you do hurts people or makes them sad, it is the wrong thing. Next, we have the greatest good for your greatest number. This means that we should choose actions that help the most people, not just one, not just two. And it's like deciding to share treats in class, giving each classmate a little treat is better than giving all of it to just one friend. So an example is the minimum wage law. It helps many workers by making sure that they get fair pay. It doesn't make everyone super rich, but it helps the majority to live better. So overall, both ideas says do the thing that makes the most people happy and try not to cause harm.
There are two types of utilitarianism. The first is the act utilitarianism, was put forward by Jeremy Bentham, a British philosopher and a social reformer. Act utilitarians believe that the consequences of an act alone justify the act's rightness. For example, if taking a human life leads to more good than bad consequences, it is the right thing to do. The second one is the rule utilitarianism, was put forward by a philosopher and economist, John Stuart Mill, who was a student of Bentham's. In contrast, rule utilitarians believe that the consequences of an action determine the action's rightness, but within a framework of a basic rules which tend to maximize good consequences. For example, a rule utilitarian would not agree that taking a human life is correct as long as it leads to more good consequences, because taking the life would be violating a basic utilitarian rule.
The consequentialist framework is an ethical approach that focuses on the future effects of our action. When we use this framework, we examine the possible outcomes of different choices and consider how these outcomes will affect the people involved, whether directly or indirectly. The goal is to determine which action will produce the best consequences. Therefore, a person using the consequentialist framework aims to make decisions that will create the most good and reduce harm. Philosopher Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill share a common idea. People naturally avoid pain and seek pleasure. For them, this is the foundation of what it means to act ethically. However, Mill adds an important point: not all pleasure are the same, and the higher versus lower pleasure. Mill argues that intellectual pleasures, those involving the mind, learning, creativity, or personal growth, are more valuable than simple physical pleasure. Physical pleasure may feel good, but intellectual pleasures leads to deeper satisfaction and better long-term outcomes. To explain this, Mills contract two types of people. First, a person who only knows simple physical enjoyments, and a person who knows both physical and intellectual pleasures. Mills believed that someone who understands both wills always prefer that higher intellectual pleasures, even if it's harder to achieve. Mill's famous quote, or John Stuart Mill wrote, it is better to be human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. Better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. If the fool or the pig disagrees, it is because they only know their own side of experience. The person who has experienced both higher and lower pleasures understand the difference and will choose the higher forms of happiness.
So the next one is the Mill on intellectual pleasure. So John Stuart Mill argued that intellectual pleasure are of a higher quality than physical pleasures because they are more valuable to a human happiness, a concept that explored in his utilitarian philosophy. He famously stated that it is bet it is better to be human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied, better to be a Socrate dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. This is because intellectual pleasure, which include those from the intellect, imagination, and moral sentiments, offer a more lasting and robust form of happiness than the fleeting contentment of a purely physical gratification. So, John Stuart Mill believed intellectual pleasure are superior to physical ones because they contribute more to genuine human happiness. Um, um, he differentiated between higher intellectual and lower and physical physical pressures, arguing that those experienced in both realms will recognize the greater value of intellectual pursuits. Mel emphasized that true happiness requires intellectual engagement as a as a life focus solely on physical gratefulness and incomplete. Intellectual pleasure has five types. This is the higher versus lower pleasures, qualitative distinction, the rule of experience, and the intellectual pursuit. So the higher versus lower pressure is Mel distinguish between higher and lower pressures, classifying intellectual moral, and aesthetic pursuit as higher and physical sensations as lower. So the next one is the qualitative difference. So the qualitative difference is the key difference is not just in quantity but in quality. Mill argued that one cannot trade a higher pleasure for a lower one without a loss, even if the lower pleasure is achieved in greater abundance. So the next one is the rule of experience. So Mill believed that the superiority of intellectual pleasure can only be determined by those who have experienced both types of. He he asserted that any person capable of both would recognize the higher quality of intellectual pursuit. So the next one is the moral complete happiness. So intellectual pursuits are essentially for true human happiness, while physical pressures are necessary. A life solely focused on them would be incomplete and ultimately lead to disaffection and.
Justice and Fairness and Case Study of Carlos Dilemma. Justice and fairness are ethical principles used to distribute benefits and burdens in society in a way that is equal, impartial, and morality right. Justice and fairness are moral principles that guided how we treat people in society. They make sure that decisions are equal, unbiased, and morally Right. Number one, justice. Justice means giving people what they deserve based on their actions, their rights, their contributions. For example, a hardworking employee deserves to be recognized or rewarded fairly. Justice is connected to rules, laws, and moral obligations. Fairness. Fairness means treating everyone equally and without favoritism. It ensures that no one gets special treatment, no one is discriminated against. Decisions are consistent and reasonable. Focuses on making sure that everyone has a fair chance and that personal preferences do not affect important decisions. Case study. Carlin works in a company where she must choose between number one, recommending her close friends for a promotion, number two, choosing the most qualified employee based on company standards. Carly must choose whom to recommend or promotions. She has two choices. Her close friends who wants the promotions or the most qualified employee based on company performance and standards. This creates a difficult situation for Carlins because her personal relationship conflicts with her professional responsibility.
Those in need, the difference between can and want refers to the challenge of distinguishing between individuals who genuinely cannot provide for themselves due to circumstances beyond their control, like disability or lack of opportunity, and those who will not make an effort, even when opportunities are available. So, this idea is about figuring out who really needs help and why. Some people truly can't take care of themselves because they have problems like disabled or not being able to find a job, not having the chance to go to school. Other people won't take care of themselves even if they could. Maybe they don't want to work or lazy and try to cheat the system to get free stuff. So, example of Kant, a person who is blind and get jobs, or and can a mom with small kids who can't afford daycare needs help so she can work. So, example of one, a person who could work but refuses to get a job just to get free money doesn't really need help. Another sample of one. A person who lies to get more welfare money is cheating the system. So, narrate what a person deserves.
Hi everyone, my topic is all about love and care. And the question is, are these fairness? So basically, to make this reporting short, what it means in this part is that Carlin's love and care for her kids are more important to her than her making sure that she spends the exact amount of time that she spends to each one of them. So even though she decided to treat them equally, what really matters here is that she wants it to be fair and to make her kids feel like they are supported and they are growing, because sometimes there are some things that doesn't have a perfect solution or even a good one. So what do? Of course, we do the best that we can. So as long as the root of her decisions concerns for fairness and loving care, that's what makes her a choice, a good and an ethical one.
I will be discussing about the social justice. And it says here in our module that social justice is equal access to wealth, opportunities, and privileges within a society. Hence, the promotion of social justice is equivalent to promotion of the common good. So basically, social justice focuses on giving every person fair and equal access to opportunities, resources, and privileges in society. This means that no one should be left behind because of their background, their status, or situation. It is connected to the idea of the common good, which refers to public services and shared systems that are provided for the benefit of everyone in the community. So, when fairness is practiced and when resources are shared and accessible, people are given equal chances to grow, succeed, and live better lives. For example, when the government provides public schools, proper roads, transportation, parks, and a clean environment, it supports equality and improves everyone's quality of life. In short, developing public services also promotes social justice because it allows all individuals to benefit, not just a few.
Good morning everyone. I'm gonna explain you about distribution justice. Ang distribution justice is about fair share sa resources, opportunity kag responsibilities sa society. Hindi man siya always equal pero dapat fair. Kung ano ang need mo or deserve mo, amo nang yatid for the good of everyone. So we have a 6 ways society practices distributes justice. First is egalitarianism. Everyone dapat may equal rights kag treatment, hindi gusto isang law na may ginapaboran. Next is free market. Ang distribution niya based sa supply and demand, kung ano ang ginapangita kung available, amo na ang mag-decide sa prices kag resources. Third is socialism. Resources ihatag based on need. Needs like kung mas kinahanglan mo, mas may share ka. Taxation. Nagakolekta ang government taxes para makaprovide public services like schools, hospitals, kag roads. Fifth is public welfare. May mga laws kag programs para mag-protect sa and support ang health, safety kag well-being sa tanan. Last is eminent domain. Ang government pwede magakuha sa private land for public project as long as bayaran nila fair. That's it. Thank you.
Justice. It basically means being fair and doing what is right. But justice as a moral framework helps us decide what is right, fair, and equal. It makes sure people are treated the way they deserve, and it helps balance everyone's rights and the rules of society. It also guides us to make good choices that make life fair to everyone. We usually use justice in laws, school rules, communities, and even in everyday life, like sharing, taking turns, and saying sorry when we hurt someone. There are different kinds of justice. First, we have distributive justice. This means sharing things fairly, like toys, foods, or resources, so everyone gets what they need. Next is procedural justice, which means that the rules and processes we follow should also be fair, not just the result. Then there's retributive justice. This is about giving fair consequences when someone does something wrong. And finally, restorative justice, which focuses on fixing the harm and helping people get along again after a problem.